The Supreme Court is back in session, and it looks like they've got a busy docket ahead of them.
It's always interesting to see what cases they'll take on. What are some of the big ones this term?
It's about a Tennessee law that restricts gender-affirming care for transgender minors. The court is going to have to decide whether that law violates the Constitution.
That's a really important question. It's going to have a big impact on the lives of transgender people, especially young people.
Absolutely. It's a case that's going to be watched very closely, and it's just one of many cases that the court is going to be dealing with this term. It's going to be a busy year for them.
It certainly sounds like it. I'm curious to see how they rule on all of these cases. It's going to be interesting to see how the court's decisions shape the country in the years to come.
Well, one of the most high-profile cases is about ghost guns. These are privately made weapons that are hard to track because they don't have serial numbers.
I've heard about those. They're a real concern, aren't they? I mean, how can law enforcement track them if they don't have any identifying information?
Exactly. The Biden administration has been trying to regulate them, but gun rights groups are challenging those regulations. It'll be interesting to see how the court rules on that one.
I can see both sides of that argument. On the one hand, you want to make sure that law enforcement can track these weapons, but on the other hand, you don't want to infringe on people's Second Amendment rights.
Right. It's a tricky balance. Another big case is about Richard Glossip, who's been on death row for decades. There's been a lot of doubt about his conviction, and even the Oklahoma Attorney General is now calling for it to be overturned.
Wow, that's a really serious case. It's hard to imagine being on death row for so long, especially if there's doubt about your guilt.
It's definitely a case that's going to get a lot of attention. And then there's the transgender rights case. That one's going to be a real hot-button issue.
I can imagine. It's a very sensitive topic, and there are strong feelings on both sides. What's the case about specifically?